And former New York City Democratic Mayor Ed Koch has died at the age of 88. The legendary mayor served 3 terms in office from 1978 to 1989. He's widely credited with rescuing the city from the brink of financial ruin, but also faced criticism for his handling of unions and the early onset of the AIDS crisis. Mayor Koch was known for his feisty demeanor, which gave him a national reputation and sparked multiple political controversies. The writer Pete Hamill said of Koch, "That's the voice of New York. That's what we are." Ed Koch died this morning here in New York City. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We begin today's coverage with more on the death of former New York Mayor Ed Koch. Juan González is usually sitting beside me on Fridays, but he's heading to the airport to speak in Houston. Juan, we just got the news a couple of hours ago that Mayor Koch died at New York's Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. Can you talk about Mayor Koch's legacy? You have covered him for many years.
Yes, Amy. Well, he really was a larger-than-life figure in the history of modern New York City, and clearly a man who, as you said, he was brash, he was combative. At the same time, he was known for his humor and his ability to disarm even his strongest opponents, and he really presided over a period of intense upheaval in the city. And while some do credit him for steering the city through the financial crisis, it's really, I think it was an effort not just of the mayor and state officials, but also the labor unions of the city who used their pension funds to lend the city money at a time when no one else would, so that there's often an attempt to rewrite the history and make it seem as a few key figures were responsible for pulling New York City out of its worst period of time during that financial crisis in the 70s. However, Koch was he was an amazing figure. He was a one-time liberal, an anti-war opponent of the Vietnam War as a congressman who, in his later years, became increasingly a neoconservative opponent of affirmative action, and really developed during his terms in office a very hostile relationship with the African American and the Latino community. I'll never forget back in 1989 when he was attempting to run for his fourth term, an unprecedented fourth term, and he went to the funeral of a black teenager in Brooklyn who had been killed by a mob of whites in Bensonhurst, and there was such anger in the black community at the time that Koch was actually chased out by the crowd and forced to flee in his limousine because, and of course, was unsuccessful in attempting to have a fourth term. But at the same time, there was a lot of good that occurred during his period of the mayoralty. He did launch a huge low-income housing program, feeling it was the responsibility of government to assure that there was affordable housing for low-income New Yorkers. I think about $5 billion that he spent in that program. And of course, he always sort of represented that combative spirit of New Yorkers. His most famous line was, "How am I doing?" And I think that, people who look back now at his period of time will say, well, Mayor, you did pretty well for a figure who was so long on the political scene. Even until the last few days, he was still pontificating on New York One, the local all-news cable news channel, as one of the wise guys who would render his opinion on almost anything happening in the political world in New York City. So he was a larger-than-life figure, very controversial, but still indelibly marked his legacy on the modern-day New York.
Juan, we'd like to ask you to stay on the phone as we move from the death of Mayor Koch to... Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.